Okay, let's talk about some coaches that might get fired. That feels like I'm saying that with too much enthusiasm. Hopefully, everyone keeps their job. Well, I guess 32 people will be head coaches next year anyway. So you get the idea here. Let's talk about 10 coaches who I think could end up fired. The way I'm going to do this list is who do I think is the most likely to get fired and who do I think is most likely to get fired first is kind of how I'm viewing this. So I think there's a chance you don't make it to the end of the year, you're going to be closer towards number one on the list than if you're almost certainly making it to the end of the year, but will you make it more than that? So yeah, that is how I'm going to do this. 10 coaches that are most likely to get fired in 2025, or I guess some of these would be in 2026. Let's just get into it. Number 10 was actually a tough one. I decided to go Sean McDermott, which, I should just say, I don't think he's going to get fired. I considered Zach Taylor for this spot, but the Bengals are just so weird. They just never like to fire coaches, so I think Zach Taylor is going to have such a long leash. He's been to a Super Bowl. I just think unless they absolutely win 2 games this year, if they're just in the playoff hunt, he'll probably stay around. Sean McDermott, though, I do think the Bills could say, if the Bills have a bad year and miss the playoffs, I think they could say, you know what, we're going to try to move on because, quite frankly, McDermott done a lot of things really well for the Bills. He just hasn't been able to, beat the Chiefs. And while you could say that about a lot of people, you couldn't say that about Zach Taylor, but you could say that about a lot of people. I think that the reason why it would be more fair with McDermott is it does feel like usually Josh Allen plays great in those games, but the defense just can't even get any stops compared to some of the other times the Chiefs have won where it's been kind of their defense has played well, their offense has played well, complete effort type of stuff. So again, don't think he'll get fired, but maybe there's an argument here. But really, I think there's 9 that are in contention. Number 9 is Brian Schottenheimer of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, here's why he could get fired. He's not a huge name. I guess, literally he is a huge name. It's a lot of letters, but not a name that wasn't a hot coaching candidate. It was a weird hire when it happened. And the Cowboys have expectations. If they underperform those expectations, if they miss the playoffs, which is possible, I could see him getting some of the blame. Now, here's why it's very likely that he doesn't get fired. Jerry Jones isn't one to admit he made a mistake after 1 year. I think that's why he's low on the list. But again, I can think of a way it could happen, so I put him at 9. Number 8, I'm going Jonathan Gannon of the Arizona Cardinals. Now, again, I don't think he will get fired because I like what the Cardinals are doing. It feels like they're building things and going on the upswing. But you do wonder, he's has had a couple of seasons under his belt now. If they fail to make the playoffs again, maybe to have an underwhelming season, I think I could see it, right? Ultimately, it's very rare for a coach to have 3 seasons without a playoff berth and get a 4th year. I think as long as they're competitive, I think he'll get another year, but you could see a scenario where things go wrong. Number 7, Shane Steichen, another former Eagles defense or coordinator, I should say, who was, again, he was also on that Eagles team that lost the Super Bowl to the Chiefs a couple years back. He then goes to the Colts, and again, I think he's done a pretty good job. I think clearly the thing that he's been good at is taking teams without great quarterback play and still getting them close to playoff contention. But ultimately, similar to Gannon, which is why they're right next to each other, when you don't actually get into the playoffs, eventually will things start to go awry, especially when I don't know if this Colts team is a playoff team this year. It does feel like could people start to get frustrated if he has a bad year. Again, Jim Irsay did tragically pass away this offseason. You have new ownership now. Will they want their own person in there next year? Definitely possible. Number 6, I'm going Jets head coach Aaron Glenn, former Lions defensive coordinator, has yet to be an NFL head coach, so it was unfair to put him on this list, really. But ultimately, we know the Jets are a team that likes to be a little trigger happy when it comes to some of this stuff. Bill Belichick himself said that they are ready, fire, aim. So because of that, could you see something like this with Aaron Glenn? Now, again, I think the Jets aren't going to be good. I think the good news is the Jets don't have expectations. And I think because there's no expectations, if they have a bad year, I think ownership will give him another year. But no guarantee. Next up, I am going with a 2-time Coach of the Year, Kevin Stefanski, who, actually won it just 2 years ago. But ultimately, I still do think it is somewhat reasonable to put him on the list and put him relatively high on the list. For one thing, again, talk about having time now. He's going to enter his 6th season in the NFL. They won a playoff game his first season in the NFL with Baker Mayfield in 2020. That was when he won his first Coach of the Year award. They then were okay the next 2 years, and he was kind of okay. And then 2023, they had the great season with Joe Flacco, and they still managed to make the playoffs. Horrible playoff game for them, but they still made the playoffs. However, last year, 3-14, this team isn't going to be very talented. You could see another record like that, and if you have back-to-back seasons like that, granted, again, Hugh Jackson won 1 game in a 2-year stretch and still got a 3rd year, but you could just see people saying, you know what, maybe let's pull the trigger here. Number 4 on my list is another guy who won Coach of the Year and a playoff game in his first season. It's Brian Daboll. Of course, in 2022, with Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, they make the playoffs, upset the Vikings before finally losing pretty badly to the Eagles in the divisional round. And, this was that was such a weird season when pretty much all of the underlying numbers for the Giants said that they weren't actually very good, but they made the playoffs, and we all kind of said, hey, I think the coaching has a lot to do with that. That's why Daboll ultimately won Coach of the Year. Since then, the Giants have just had no talent. They haven't been able to stay competitive. They've won 9 games. After winning 9 games in Daboll's first year, they've won 9 combined the next 2 years. And are the Giants going to be good this year? I think there actually is some talent here, and there are some expectations a little bit, not like playoff expectations, but like at least be competent expectations. So if they can't do that, he will be gone. And I do think Daboll, I think Daboll has to at least be decent and the team has to be decent for him to get another year. So that's why he's so high on the list. Again, whether you have an opinion on him or not, I think a lot of people were a little surprised he maintained as a head coach for another year. Ultimately, 3 straight years of no playoffs. And, if it's 3 straight years of double-digit losses, regardless of how good of a coach you think he is, that might just be enough. Number 3, a little bit less to talk about here, but still worth noting, Brian Callahan, Titans head coach, who, listen, I don't think last year was his fault at all, but 1 year in the NFL, worst record in football. If you have another year like that, that might just be it, right? Again, results are usually what carries the day more than anything else, so because of that, I do think there is a chance. However, hey, not a lot of expectations. If you can just be competent, he'll be fine. If they get 5-6 wins, he's fine, I think. But if they get off to a slow start, and really, if Cam Ward looks like he's in a bad situation, that's what's going to crush Callahan. The wins are actually less important. It's more about the situation, and if Cam Ward looks like he has to do it all himself, people are going to want change because they're going to want to help out the young quarterback. That's actually something we see pretty frequently. The Bears seemingly do it all the time, where they fire a head coach after 1 year. But it happens where a head coach, after 1 year of being with the young quarterback, if it doesn't go well, then your days are numbered. Number 2, I'm going Raheem Morris of the Atlanta Falcons, who, again, has expectations. That's one thing that can kind of hurt, right? When you have no expectations, you get a little bit more time. The Falcons were expected to win the division last year. That was the preseason expectation, even though Tampa Bay has had some sustained success because of what Atlanta brought in. That did not happen. And I think you could look at Morris kind of bungling the quarterback situation. And part of that was, it's hard to know how much that was his fault, right? How much of that was front office, how much of that was management. But ultimately, it felt like, if you saw Penix play more in the preseason, does he not make those rookie mistakes late in the year when he comes in and plays, and did play well, but did also make some rookie mistakes? Maybe if he actually got to play some preseason, he would have not made those mistakes. It was weird that neither him or Cousins played in the preseason. Cousins was rusty, played rusty his first game against the Steelers, and they lost that game, right? If he played preseason, maybe things would have worked. And also, it was really clear toward the middle of the season that Cousins just didn't have it anymore, and Morris only going to Penix with 3 games left in the season. I think he just pulled that trigger too late. Had he done it earlier, I think the Falcons maybe do win the division. Ultimately, that's okay. You have a decent season this year, and I think all is forgiven. But if they don't have a decent season, if they go 7-10, I think that might be it. And let's not forget, there were like some game management decisions, like not calling a timeout in that Washington game. That was like a really weird thing that kind of cost them that game. So yeah, ultimately, yeah, I think it's fair to say Raheem Morris is very much on the hot seat, needs to have a good year. However, number one on my list is Mike McDaniel of the Miami Dolphins. And I really do think that every single one of these head coaches has a chance to save their job. They have a decent season. Again, I don't think there's anyone that like will miss the playoffs or will get fired if they make the playoffs. I don't think that's going to happen. But for Mike McDaniel, I do think that that might be what you need, and it's tough because like injuries has been such a tough part of things for Mike McDaniel. I think he'll be a great offensive coordinator once he gets fired, which I do think might end up happening because I do love the X's and O's, but ultimately there's been just narratives of Miami being a soft football team that often goes against the head coach, and some things I don't think are totally fair. Like, people talk about, well, look at how bad his teams have been when the starting quarterback goes down. But also, you look at the Dolphins, and they've really neglected the backup quarterback position, which I don't get why, because Tua gets hurt every year. But, like, I'm not going to blame him too much for not getting, like Tim Boyle to play well. Like that. I think they just need to do a better job with that. Tyler Huntley played okay, but again, he was like a midseason acquisition, so I don't expect too much from that. But ultimately, again, the results can be the results. And I just think the Vic Fangio thing, right? Where Fangio kind of famously was trying to get guys to do stuff and they weren't wanting to do it. There's a bit of culture that comes into that. And because of that, got to fall into head coach a little bit. I do think McDaniel is in danger of getting fired midseason. I think that if they don't get off to a good start, that could be what ends up happening. So we'll see. But yeah, those are my 10 head coaches that are most likely to be fired. Let me know in the comments below. Who do you agree with? Who do you disagree with? Always love hearing from y'all. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.